Good afternoon. My name is Matt Doxa. I run a company called Excelsior Wealth Partners, and today we are going to bring you our monthly podcast. Today's topic is a question that seems to come up a lot. Our firm has gravitated towards helping people actually make that retirement transition. The last, 3-4 years, tens of millions, over 10 million baby boomers in America have decided to retire. Multiple reasons, but essentially stress at work, being asked to do too much, things of that nature. And a lot of them have not went back to work. But the question we get all the time is, hey, how much do I need to retire on? So there's a lot of work that's been done on that question, as you might expect. I've seen numbers in articles that just say flat 1 million, that say flat 3 million. I've seen you can take 4% out of your IRA. I've seen that go up. I've seen that go down based on that report is a bit of an antiquated, older report, but I've seen variations. If you have a pension, fortunate enough to have a true pension and Social Security, I've seen people make more in retirement than they did in their peak earning year. So as long as you live within your means, you should be fine there. But I guess I would answer that question is it depends. It's a function of expenses. It's a function of your debt level at retirement. It's a function of your lifestyle. If you're going to be taking exotic trips, refinancing the mortgage, buying a new home, buying a vacation home, that's going to be a very different experience than someone who is the debt is paid down. We are living on a fixed income and we are doing well type of experience. So I just wanted to kind of frame it up. We have 6 advisors here total. We're going to go around the room. We're not going to take a ton of time, but we're going to do our best just to kind of give some ideas when someone asks, wholeheartedly, the true of heart, say, geez, how much do I really need to retire on? And it's a popular question. That means a lot of different things to a lot of people. I'd like our advisors to weigh in. So I'm going to hand it over to Lou. I just forgot that I did not go around the room, just to let everybody know who we have on the horn here. We have Lou Geckel, Jeff Dizwankowski, we have Matt Champion, we have Russell Stout, and Kevin Christopher. So that is the team. I'm going to start with Lou to my right here. How much does an average American need to retire on?
Thank you, Matt. I think your intro kind of alluded to how much we need in retirement. It's basically dependent on each individual and what their goals and wants in retirement are. If you had to use a standard, I think you're looking at about 15 times of annual income, assuming you're getting a decent supply from Social Security. Even better if you have some type of pension, which is a very rare breed nowadays. Then you need to manage those investments more for income, because prior to retirement, most people actually are managing for accumulation. And as we've found out, very few people, once they retire, change their overall investment strategy. They just may increase their bond position. But as we do here as true wealth managers, we manage for income for those that are in retirement and pulling some funds out of their qualified accounts and non-qualified if they have them.
This is Jeff Zwankowski. The quick answer to how much you need in retirement is a lot more than you needed probably 10 years ago. That being said, of course, everyone's different. A lot of it depends on the cost of living, of what city you're in, your personal expenses, a lot of things Matt alluded to originally. But the reality is it's a case-by-case basis for everyone. You got to sit down and do your own planning. Lou mentioned starting to plan for the distribution phase of your life versus the accumulation. So one of the things you got to factor in is where interest rates are, where can you essentially generate the most return via income without, affecting your portfolio or ruining your potential retirement. So the reality is you got to work backwards, starting with your expenses. A lot of times when I work with my clients and they, decide what their monthly expenses are, I usually add a little bit more on that to give a little bit of a buffer, and then decide how to generate the returns via dividends, interest, whatever it might be, to get the income they need in the least risky way possible, as to not blow up their, retirement plans. So there is no cookie cutter answer. A lot of factors that go into it, but if you don't sit down and put pen to paper, the reality is you're never going to know how much it's going to be. And hopefully you're not asking too late, as you're approaching retirement, how much you need. It's really a question you should be asking much further ahead. But you got to put the pen to paper and really decide what it is that you and your household need to live off of. And then anything else after that, it really is just gravy. So there you go, Matt.
Thanks, Jeff. So this is Matt Champion. I think Jeff hit the nail on the head. You almost have to back into the number based on budget. And a lot of times when we meet with clients, they'll come in and they'll ask that question that we're talking about right now: how much do I need? And we'll kind of fire back and say, well, what's your monthly budget? How much do you spend monthly? And a lot of people don't know, because to Jeff's point, they don't as they get close to retirement, you get busy with life, you don't really keep track of what the bills are from time to time. So when we ask that question, how much do you need a month? A lot of people have to kind of take that back with them as like a homework assignment, look at their expenses, look at where their money's going on a month-to-month basis, see if they can cut things out, but really come up with that number, and then you can back your way into it. Once you know the monthly budget need, you can really look at what I call your known income sources, which you guys have alluded to, being Social Security. Are there any pensions? You can really look at those two items, see how much that is a month, figure out what the budget is, and then you kind of look to the portfolio to say, how much do we need this to generate on top of the pension and Social Security to be able to live comfortably in retirement. So not, really is an art form. It really is different for every person. But I think the big first thing you need to know is how much a month you need coming in just to pay your basic normal living expenses.
Thank you, Matt. Russell Stout here. So I'm going to echo the sentiment of the room up to this point. And just to add on to that, so in the 20 plus years as working as an advisor, we've seen various versions and rules of thumbs and guidelines. Matt Doxa opened up with talking about the 4% rule, which evolved as a function of a 60-40 portfolio, which for anybody that endured the last year, much of this year, it hasn't had its same resonance as it has in the past. I've been at firms, bank environments, where the recommended withdrawal rate through retirement was 3.75, and that was really an extension of because of higher fees, limited investment options, and just an overall conservative investment process of a banking program, which may not be universally applied to everybody that goes through that. And also, too, sustainable withdrawal rate is contingent upon a lot of things. Oftentimes, sequence of returns, if those start early on in retirement, that can change what that withdrawal rate looks like, as opposed to beginning a market withdrawal strategy in a much more profitable market. And that essentially, as we've learned as advisors, does evolve over time. So a sustainable withdrawal rate, if a person has inclinations to leave a legacy, that may look different than a person who, I have the clients that joke they want their last paycheck to bounce, and have no inclinations to leave something to their children. So that can be an influence, which begins to speak to estate planning and things like that. There was interesting an article that came out today that one of the most important factors that investors and clients look for in determining hiring a retirement planning advisor is their knowledge and tax efficiency. And this came out in Think Advisor. And I think that is something too where we also differentiate as a team, as a firm, is making sure that tax efficiency, because that can change a withdrawal rate as well too, but also changes a person's net income. And lastly, I will speak to something that some of the other advisors around the room had mentioned, is that it is certainly a very individualistic approach, and whether you use a a guideline of a 4% or a 3%, or Lou had said 15 times your income, which is also a good guideline as well too, is that what you're going to want to do is partner yourself with an advisor that understands these guidelines, understands some of the limitations around them, but also to know that as you go through retirement, life changes. Sometimes the best laid plans, an unexpected death of a spouse, health concerns, if you're taking care of parents, changes in lifestyle, all of those things can throw a planned withdrawal rate right out the window. So you're going to want to partner yourself with advisors like us that have the experience to be able to adjust this in a meaningful way to make sure that retirement stays on track for you. In the words of Mikado, there is no path. The path is made by walking. And I think that is something to keep in mind, is that for everybody, for retirement, it is something that you are going to have to go through, but you're going to want somebody to go through that with you to make sure that you stay on the path.
Kevin Christopher here. I'm going to have fun following up our philosopher over here, Russell Stout. But I'm going to have to agree with a lot of what Russell said and everybody else in the room. It's very individualized, right? So what I need to retire is going to be a lot different than Jeff, because my hobbies are a lot more expensive than Jeff's, right? It depends on how much money you spend and have left at the end of the week, at the end of the month. If your savings is growing every single month, then you can start there and say, hey, when we started, we were told 80% of your income is what you need for retirement. But it really varies for everyone. You have people, that need just as much as they needed when they were working, because, again, they're going and doing all kinds of different things. You have people that, savings accounts are growing every single week, as well as their retirement accounts, because they really don't spend money. They're New York State frugal, as Matt calls it. They won't turn on the air conditioner during the summer until it hits 90. They won't turn on the heat until November 24th. They won't do these things. You drive across town to get, save a penny. Those people are not going to need as much in retirement because they've lived within their means their whole time. But I mean, if you look at 80% of your income and a 4% withdrawal rate, so if you had $1 million, you got 40 grand there, 2 Social Securities, you're looking at, another $30,000 to $40,000 there. Is that enough for a married couple in upstate New York? I'm not sure. Again, it really depends on that lifestyle. I guess at this point, I'm kind of beating a dead horse. I'm going to head it over to Matt here.
All good points. We're 13 minutes in, so I think we can do one more quick lap around. Where I would kind of go a little bit more granular is all good ideas, all different thought processes in terms of how much money you need. One of the things that we talk a lot about here in terms of the mistakes that we see people make throughout the years as it relates to retirement is people will retire from XYZ company and they'll leave their 401k there and they'll begin to take distributions to live on, and the 401k will set it up, over 120 months with the idea that it's going to render that 401k depleted and out of money. Or if you wanted to pull out your quarterly dividends on a 401k, you might be at, 3%, even in a high in interest rate environment. So 401ks are tough to generate income to live on. Some people used to use annuities a little bit more, but with inflation being up as high as it is, to say generate 5%, the older annuities had income bands where somebody who's 60 got the same income as somebody who's 64 when they were 4 years older, and actuarially speaking, that probably didn't make sense. So the annuities evolved, but they're still like 5-6% type of ranges in your mid 60s. Nowadays, they have a lot of more, what I would say, cutting edge strategies where you're using covered calls and things like this, high incomes that are much higher than 5%, right? With 1/10 of the expenses or whatever. So my question is around the accumulation versus distribution phase. You now know how much you need to retire, and you set out a quest to generate some income. We would say the accumulation phase is grow, 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 and then you have to flick a switch and set a path to actually generate said monthly coming in. Give the folks listening today just an idea and some options of how we're doing, income planning or taking the money out of the retirement plan, as opposed to maybe how we used to do it, and maybe we don't even go memory lane, just kind of what are we doing these days to help the clients who don't have the pensions, Jeff, that are living on the money. How do we get that money out on the highest form so these people that are retiring can live comfortably?
This is Lou Geckel. We do a couple things a little different than a lot, and I think it's going to be echoed around, is we definitely have a higher allocation to private equity and real estate investment trusts that a lot of our competitors do not use, cannot use, or are afraid to use. One of the three. I'm not too sure. But that really sets us apart. We still use stocks and bonds and preferred stocks, high yield bonds, senior loans, and some of the normal things a lot of people do. But since we try and invest at more of an endowment for the income, long-term strategy, private equity, and real estate investment trusts are the big ones. And I'll pass it over to Jeff.
I always just tell my clients that, hope is not a strategy. Matt said earlier that, you go through the accumulation phase, save as much money as possible, grow it, and then you get to retirement, and ultimately you got to turn that into an income stream. We don't see a lot of people doing that. A lot of people think, well, let's hope my account grows. I'll, just take money off the top, whatever profits I make, and I can live off that. Well, then the problem comes when, there is no profits to take off the top. A year like last year, the market performed well, or did not perform well. And then if you were taking money off the top, you're going to have a very tough time clawing back from that. So you need to have an investment strategy using different, option strategies, dividends, interest, private credit, different unique type of investments that are non-correlated to the rest of the market. So if there is some, bad market years, you're still generating the income. I always tell clients you want to essentially take on as little risk as possible while generating the returns you need to live off of, because there's no sense in derailing your portfolio to try to get rich when you're 65 years old. I recently had a client about $1 million, just threw out that she would like to have $2 million by retirement. I said, where did you come up with that number? She just made it up for some reason. She thought she needed $2 million. I said, well, I could show you a strategy that'll, I could take your $1 million, I could turn it into $2 million by the end of this week. And her eyes lit up. And I said, the only problem is you're gonna have to risk every penny that you have in this account by the end of this week. Are you willing to do that? And I did that, and I paused for an effect just so they could understand that, you do not need to take on an excessive amount of risk. Now is not the time to all of a sudden try to get rich. And, if you want to do that, go buy a lottery ticket. But once you get to retirement, the goal is to, kind of reverse engineer exactly what you need, figure out the type of investments that generate income rather than just, you hope and pray grow. And then that way you have a game plan moving forward for your retirement, and you at least know where you stand and what you could expect to spend your money on. And I'll pass it over to Matt.
And I think you're right. I think it is a mindset shift that some people miss out on, because you're just so used to working and saving and putting money away that, when you hit that magic retirement date, the whole goal of that account now becomes to last as long as possible, right? So it's a mindset shift from save to, how do I pull money out of this? What's the best strategy? And these guys have alluded to, a lot of the different things, dividend options, real estate, other income producing items. There's annuities out there now, which, can be a polarizing product, but some of them are really designed to generate a guaranteed income. And there's a lot of studies out there about retirement that talk about the happiest people in retirement are the ones with the most guaranteed or predictable income coming in, where they don't necessarily have to, stress about the ups and downs of the markets. And again, there's newer products that have guaranteed minimums with upside potential. So there's a lot of things out there in the marketplace, but it is more of a mindset shift of, now I no longer need to save, but I need to make sure this money lasts as long as I do. Russ?
Thank you, Matt. I think that for a lot of our retirees, one of the most daunting tasks is that they have to go from a lifetime of being, very disciplined savers into a spending pattern. We have clients that are on the verge of retirement that insist they still have their first communion money. So spending and how to spend become something that they necessarily need help with. Even for the clients that we encounter that don't have any inclinations to spend, sometimes that is forced upon them in the form of required minimum distributions, healthcare costs, things like that. So Lou and Matt had mentioned earlier on the second go around about using things like private equity and alternatives, and why a particular investment strategy is very important is that because that has us as advisors in a position to move that needle to what becomes a sustainable withdrawal rate. And we're in seemingly a much different market than what we would have experienced over the previous 20 years. Leading up to this point, in my experience, one of the biggest retirement challenges that I often saw was not market volatility. It was with people not earning enough. Interest rates, were much lower, in a post-2008 world. And what happened was you had people that were concerned or adverse about the market in a 2008 world, and they were not investing enough. And things like required minimum distributions, when you're earning 1% and you're forced to take out 5-6%, that's where you hear some of the challenges of people running out of money or not having an overall meaningful function of retirement. Now we're transitioning to a much different environment in a more normalized interest rates coming up, much more market volatility, and trying to couple that with longevity, the chance of a person living to age 90, quality of life. Matt often speaks about the David Blanchett smile, and he will submit to you that it is anything but a smile. But what I would say is that the most important thing, as I resonated earlier, is that you're going to want to have somebody with you in the form of a professional advisor that can help move you confidently through this. And there's been some great ideas throughout the course of this room, and some touch points on some of the things that we do well. And I would say this, to end with another quote to keep with my theme. Og Mandino has said that there has never been a map, no matter how perfectly drawn to scale or detailed perfection, that has carried its owner over 1 inch of ground. So what that means is that you can have the perfect plan, but it is something that, the journey is what matters, and having somebody along with you on that journey that can speak to these topics to help you follow that map is what's going to be the most beneficial thing to you.
Thank you, Zen Master Russ over here. Everybody's pointed out some very, very good points, but the ongoing theme here is you need to sit down and really plan for retirement. You need to know how much income you actually need. Maybe the 5% isn't enough. Maybe you need 8 or 9 because you were highly compensated, and you're going to have to use covered call strategies in private equity and REITs, and maybe you can get away with sitting in a CD earning 3% right now, and that's enough. Without sitting down and actually doing the math, it's really hard to say what's the right strategy for people. What I can say is you want to make sure that you have every arrow in the quiver available to you. At certain places, the only things they have are mutual funds and annuities, right? And if you only have a hammer, everything becomes a nail. So you're going to end up with either an annuity or a mutual fund account, which are, for some people it's great because the guaranteed income Matt Champion was speaking of earlier. For some people, the expenses aren't worth it, and there's no reason they should be paying that kind of fee because they have the assets where they wouldn't need to pay that fee. What you really do need to do is sit down and just figure out how much income you need, work with a financial professional that has all the options available to them. You want to make sure that the advisor you're working with has access to these things we're talking about. If somebody doesn't know what a non-traded REIT is, you might want to walk for the door. If the first thing they talk to you about is an annuity, you probably want to, walk to the door. And with that said, I'm going to hand it over to Mr. Doxa here, and maybe he can use one of his own quotes for once.
All right, guys, that's a spirited little commentary there. I don't know what's in the Excelsior water this morning, but you guys were fired up. A lot of one-liners, a lot of good content, which I was fixated on, and not so much the John Wayne quotes that I heard being flown around the table here, but all good stuff. If I'm a client of Excelsior, as a prospective client, someone looking at this topic, there was a lot of nuggets in here, but we don't give blanket advice to individuals. So at the end of the day, you got to, we got to do the analysis on what is your plan for retirement. And I think you'll end up using a lot of what we discussed today, and then you might not use other parts of it. But it's not cookie cutter. It is individualized because everyone's situation is a little unique, but we hit on most of the topics. So good job, guys. I appreciate it. Thank you. Have a great day.